Hi, I'm Miles, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the Linnstrument and specifically the Linnstrument layout. There's been a lot of discussion about this. Um, it's exciting for me, and I'm sure a lot of you, to be involved in some way in exploring this wonderful new instrument. And I say new, it's really been around for like 6 or 7 years now, but it seems to take, ironically, a lot of time. The more sort of revolutionary a tool is, the longer it seems for people to take it up. We're on that path right now, that S curve of adoption, I guess. And so, as early adopters, um, we there's still room to have some role in uh, thinking through how you might want to use a device like this. Um, so the, Today I just really wanted to talk about the grid layout itself. And I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who's only used this for 2 weeks, so I know a lot of people listening have a much deeper experience. But let's just start out with the default layout, which is organized in musical force. For people who aren't familiar with music theory, I'm probably only a little more familiar than you are. But when we say force, it can be a little confusing. What we're really talking about is when we walk along a major scale, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we're at the fourth. So when we move up, we're moving up by force. But actually, if we count on semitones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, that doesn't seem right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, as a software developer, we call this a fence post error. So, when we're talking about force, we're counting the starting note. But when we're talking about the numbers on the actual Linnstrument, we're doing what seems to me to be sensible, which is counting the number of steps above. So it's actually ignoring this, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're at +5 here. Okay, so for somebody who's a guitar player, you'll see this will feel immediately familiar. If you are somebody who plays using 3 note per string, this is a string, then you'll be super familiar with these patterns because they appear in all of the books that we've read and so on. And there are 3 basic patterns. There's the one that's starting on the 1, and the one that starts on the 2. Oop. You'll see I'm still getting the muscle memory for some of this. And then there's the one that starts on the 3, which to me is a little bit more awkward. Yeah, the first one is awkward in the sense that you've got the spread. For me, generally, if I can find this position, I feel more comfortable with it. So that's running scales. And then when you look at chords, we have 1, 2, 3. This is the third of a major, fourth, fifth. So that's the fourth note. Sorry, that's the major chord. If we wanted a 7th chord, here's the 7th. The 7th always nicely nestled by the root. So there's a nice jazzy 7th for us. Okay, so we can of course do extensions and so on. Okay, so the advantages here, of course, are familiarity. The notes, all within an octave, are very much at hand here. And you could argue that chord shapes are more sort of packed together, which you could argue is easier and potentially faster. So there are a bunch of other choices here. We can do thirds, -3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So this is 2. It's actually, there's our 3. It's a flat 3. So as we walk up, we get flat 3s, and that might be nice for some kinds of music, and not as much for others. One thing that happens here is we start to lose range as we drop. So, whereas on the higher ones we get, like this is +7. Ouch. Okay. So we go back to thirds. So third, I'm sure they're partisans for sorry, not third, for +3. Then we have +4. This is a nice layout. Could be a good compromise. And then here's the 5, which of course we just talked about. Here's the 6. The +6 we'll come back to. Here's the +7. Once we get into +7 and higher, it starts to be. Oh, actually, sorry, I selected the octave. That didn't look right. We can see that actually, whereas in all the other layouts we can easily reach any note in that octave, it starts to be a stretch just to get that last note, and we certainly. So there's a little more spread out quality. So I can't see exactly the use case for +7, but I'm sure it's out there. Then there's the octave, which is useful if you want to walk up, but if you're going to do chords, you know, I mean, across, if you're going to, sorry, not chords, but octave stretches, that's going to happen here like this. Yeah, so I mean, there's, you know, I could see usefulness for that as well. And then there's the no overlap at all, which is this option. Let's see here. Right. So possibly this is useful for, say, if you're really using this as a pad and you want every single note to be equivalent. Okay, so returning back to what I think, I mean, based on no real data, what will be the most popular two tunings? It would be this +5 or fourth, and +6 or an augmented fourth. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the advantages of the fourth. Let's talk about the sixth. So this is the +6. This is my favorite, and I think one of the reasons is it's just so immediately elegant looking, and I have a real sense of a clear map of all of the notes. And you know, one of the most obvious is the yellow lights, which are the root notes, are aligned. And actually, we're going up a tritone. So what that is 1, 2, 3, 4, an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. That's what they call, I can't remember, like the devil's note or whatever, devil's interval. But I don't know, it can sound nice in certain ways, in certain places. The sixth is right smack in the middle. And what you can do is play a full scale. So let's see. Oops. You can already see that it's arguably a little more awkward to play this way. Now part of that is, first of all, this is a 4-note per string, which means you can do it all in 2 rows, which is nice. Also, you know, you need to bring your pinky in, and it's not as big of a deal with as it is with the guitar. Our pinky doesn't need to be nearly as strong, and for me, I feel like it's really just a matter of getting more familiar with that. And also this thing that's my nemesis in guitar, which is my finger. My pinky tends to hook in a little bit. That makes that stretch a little more difficult. Maybe it'd be easier for others. But the other thing is, you can play, if you think about this along a diagonal, it's actually just the same as the 3/4. So you can do this, and I find this that the scale is actually really, as I get used to it, is almost as comfortable. And arguably, since your wrist is like this, if you've got the Linnstrument in this orientation, it's just as natural. I mean, it's a little more ergonomic, but that might not actually be true because you'd have to stretch your index finger in that case. But anyway, but back to the layout. One cool thing for me is that the diagonals is a nice fifth. So I call that kind of instant Aaron Copland. And you got your fourths, and then thirds. But what I'm really feeling is the difference here is the spread that you get. So if we do a major, we could do a major like this. We can do a major like that. Sorry, missed that. And this is really cool to me, is that if you want to do an inversion, you always know that you can just go down an octave. Now you can do the same thing in fourths, but you have to remember that this is that you have to move diagonally, which I find more awkward. More than that, to me, maybe it's just an ADHD thing or whatever, I get lost. And so the clearer the visual, the clearer the representation is, the cleaner the map, the fewer translations I have to do, the easier I find it. The other thing that I like about this is using the full width of your hand. So here we're in a kind of a little bit more of an up-down, like a guitar orientation. As somebody pointed out on the KVR forum, there's a lot of things that have been designed into a guitar because they kind of have to be, because they work the best. Like you're gripping the neck of a guitar, and the way it works is you just can't spread your fingers out that much, and plus the frets are further apart. But in that, we don't have that issue in the Linnstrument, right? I can stretch quite a ways, and if I do thumb to pinky, I can cover. I don't know if I have unusually wide stretching hands, but I think most of us can make pretty decent stretches. The other thing I like about this is when you're doing these chords, it feels more natural to me to do extensions, especially if I'm doing them from this hand. And I feel like the style of play I've been using is to, is to kind of root my thumb in one place, usually the actual root, and then just play from there, which gives me a sense of orientation. Your fingers can still sort of dance around, but you've got that sort of location and that spread. So you've got access to everything. Again, you could argue that you've got that, but you don't have that map. And the other thing that I find is you have the other thing I find that I really like is that you've got these open spaces between. So again, there's a sense for me where there's more spread, and that's actually a good thing because it allows you to create an open tripod shape. And of course, this is an expressive controller, and we want to be able to express polyphonically, express different notes differently. So we want to be able to easily vary notes independently. And this just feels like it supports that more, whereas often with this fingering, I'm feeling kind of bunched up, if that makes sense. So to close out this already too long video, I wanted to sort of share that I think the most important thing, of course, is that not what comes from the factory set up as, not what other people tell you, but what do you find most comfortable for the music and most expressive I think that's an important bit for the music that you want to play. And it's not just about doing things as quick as you can. Of course, you want to play fluidly, but I think for this kind of instrument, you really want to think about expressiveness. So can you vary things independently? And can you add in different notes and so on? How easily can you do that? And can you find your way, navigate your way around the keyboard? Again, probably this is simpler to start with for guitar players. But I would really encourage people to think about how they want to use how they want to use it in the long term, and to try different things out. So there was an argument online about whether you should pick a particular tuning and sort of stick with it, and then that practice over time is what will really make you an expert. And others saying really understanding an instrument is about understanding it under different configurations and so on. So when we play the guitar, playing sometimes an open tuning, playing actually exploring different tunings and seeing what falls out and so on. I'm much more in that latter camp myself. And at the very least, I would encourage you to, again, not go with the defaults and explore. For me, do some chordal playing and so on, but one of the things that I've been focused on trying out is the Bach cello suite, which I could never have imagined, learning the cello to actually play, and it's one of my favorite pieces, I think one of many people's favorite pieces. And I started out with the Geo Shred, playing around with this, because before I invested, or actually my wife invested for me, in this expensive instrument, I wanted to see if a grid bass really made sense for me. And so I used the Geo Shred, which is this force layout. And so I'm familiar with it, but here we go. Anyway, I hope that's helped in at least maybe broaden the discussion around all of this, and for people who are new to the instrument, maybe give you a better sense of the overall landscape. But again, I would say spend some time with each of the layouts and really keep an open mind. I think you might be surprised and enthralled by the different options you find. Thanks, and I hope you're all enjoying this wonderful instrument as much as I am.